This episode is sponsored by United Refrigeration and Westermeyer Industries, revolutionizing your HVACR experience. Visit URI.com for all your HVACR needs, offering real-time inventory, personalized pricing, and a nearby stock feature. Access quick pick replacement parts and branch details effortlessly. With 350 plus fully stocked locations across North America, our knowledgeable staff are ready to assist with the solutions you need. Exclusive offer. Use code ARPOD on URI.com to get a $10 gift card when purchasing the Westermeyer oil float, part number W4300-38F. These high-performance floats are not just compatible with their own oil separators, but also available as a crossover model, conveniently stocked at United Refrigeration. That's code ARPOD to claim your $10 gift card. Visit URI.com now.
The Sporlan division of Parker Hannifin Corporation is sponsoring this podcast. Sporlan is the leading manufacturer of HVAC and R components. Using quality materials and craftsmanship, Sporlan maintains a commitment to innovation, manufacturing excellence, service, and support for its customers since 1934. The company is known for its catch-all filter dryers, thermostatic expansion valves, solenoid valves, pressure regulating valves, suction filters, electric valves, controllers, supermarket monitoring solutions, chemicals, smart service tools, Zoom Lock Max, Press to Connect, and Zoom Lock Push, Push to Connect refrigerant fittings. If folks want to learn more, what do they do?
You can go to sporlan.com.
I guess that's Jim and John for Sporlan signing off.
Let's start with.
I don't know. He was talking about a horse jockey or something. Like, what do you like?
Stop it.
I'm just wondering. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're the host, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. And we have a special guest, Ryan McAndrews from the land of maple syrup. How are we doing?
Not bad. How are you?
Living the dream. If anyone doesn't know Ryan, Ryan's been on here before. He's like just a Canadian version of Kevin, just nicer.
Stop it.
A lot nicer.
I think at this point, he may be, besides Joe, maybe the most reoccurring person.
Really? You think so?
Yeah.
It's my third.
Yeah.
Has it
Besides
really?
Joe's on his fourth, I think.
Well, I'm sure we'll do another deep dive in some stuff too.
Yeah, when next time Kevin has a problem with another ADF. So it was funny that you guys were talking about that because I was rifling through stuff and I was like, wow, I found training on ADF stuff. I probably should have told Kevin that I found it. So, how are you doing today, Kevin? What's going on in your world?
Oh, my God. It's been fires and disasters and people on vacations, so it's been hell. So I've been running around since I'm the only startup guy and trying to program this microthermal store like 2 hours a day. And I just spent the last 5.5 hours looking at a CO2 site in Kentucky. So getting you're such a dick. Just getting a router set up on an E2 so I can remote into it so I could figure out what's going on with this rack because it just keeps crashing daily.
The network?
No, the rack just keeps crashing daily.
Why though?
So I haven't got that far because none of the logging was set up on this brand new rack. So it's pretty hard to troubleshoot stuff when none of the graphs work. So
the boomers used to do it all the time.
Yeah, the boomers used to do it. And the boomers think that the CO2s is the devils. So I just had to redo all the logs in this thing and made a bunch of changes so it doesn't run like a Model T. And yeah, I honestly think it's the Crewan oil safeties killing the rack.
And internal sensor fault.
Yep. I am convinced that it's the Crewans killing the thing, and I don't even want to see them. Like, I wanted them replaced, but I guess the OMCs are back ordered for 6 months.
I don't know if I think that's accurate. I've heard
So
that claim as well, and I don't know. We had some.
that I'm ordering them from Emerson or for Copeland, Canada.
Sure, go for it.
So
Why? The Cure ones are awesome because you got a dongle. Hook up with a
With-
dongle.
like 60 different parameters, and
Why
like
not? You can
yeah.
adjust the oil level off to what, a quarter of an inch or something like that. Cool.
Yeah, then the fill levels and everything else. I'd rather just throw an OMC on there and it just work out of the box. Don't gotta adjust anything.
The right model for the right pressure, though.
Yeah.
I just have to throw that out there because that's the thing.
Hey,
Wrong
you know what
application.
though? I've drilled out an OMC and made that work for a weekend. She'll fit on a Bitzer compressor if you go over one hole and just drill that out a little bit.
I think we have adapters that you can just
You do, but
put them on.
you don't got adapters at Friday night.
That's fair. That's fair.
So Friday night, you just drill a hole out a little bit and try not to put the drill bit through your leg.
You just made a new advertisement for me. Thank you very much for that. Thank
What?
you.
They work.
I-
They're rated 800 pounds.
I'm just saying it's going to be amazing. Just got to drill a hole. Just don't drill it through your leg. How about you, Ryan? How are things in up there?
Still living in my igloo, as everybody thinks, right up here.
Live in
Um,
igloo.
Now I've been playing troubleshooting, remote troubleshooting the last couple days for a couple of retailers here and there.
Yeah.
One may have involved the oil failure that you'd previously mentioned. And yeah, we got that sorted out, as well as some oil level switches that apparently are a recalled batch from another third party, which that got sorted out. Normally open contact on an oil reservoir whenever it was open, no medium, and there's 9 volts leaking through it. So that was stellar. That caused a lot of headaches.
So
And
that thing that you were talking about before we started recording, the angle, can I share that? Can we bring that up and talk about that? Not yet. Okay. Fine.
Maybe not yet. If anything, you can say it when maybe I'm not on here.
Okay.
Just so the manufacturer's politics there.
Gotcha.
But if anything, and in another episode for you guys, I would recommend that you guys would do it. It's information I think that needs to get out there. But yeah,
Just not while I'm on
troubleshooting
here.
mode lately, yeah. Yeah, that's what else I've been doing. I got to build 10 of these things behind me. That's fun.
I thought you were gonna get someone else to do that for you.
Yeah.
You should send me and Brett each one.
We'll test it out. Just saying.
Works pretty well. It's yeah, as you can see, I got my little test bench there. I got a CC200 over BACnet IP, obviously being Ethernet. There's an IPRO. You can see some bar graphs on there that simulate what the valve positions are. I got potentiometers and dip switches, so you can do various testing on the thing, and you can actually see what the analog outputs are. So it works pretty well, actually.
I'm really jealous right now. Like really
See,
jealous.
now we get it real fancy, and you got to get another control system to send inputs to that control system.
I have some plans for this thing behind me. So yeah, it's plan on testing out some things on it. So I'm looking forward to that. And my other task that I found the last little bit is playing around with the horizontal flash tank. I think I sent you guys some screenshots of that, but gonna giddy up on that relatively shortly.
Knockdown baffles are key, but
It only takes a little. Well, it depends on what the diameter is, because it fills up to a X amount of percent, and then, as Kevin would say, you're going to send your medium temp compressors to Jesus.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't get a lot of play, that's for sure.
No, exactly. It's a bit of a fine line, but there's also an accumulator on the outlet for the bypass that we're throwing on there too. So
Nice.
I like that idea. I do like the accumulator on just the bypass line itself.
Going
Why
right.
not?
Oh! You're saying like flash tank, accumulator, BGV, medium temp compressor. Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Why not? Yeah, we have an application where a horizontal tank could be some benefits to the type of equipment that it could go on, giving it a whirl.
I definitely see the application on rooftop racks where like it's a little bit where obviously you could throw the flash tank underneath the compressors. There's definitely that's where it comes in. You don't have an 8-foot tank sticking up and looking all ridiculous, and you don't need a 27-foot tall rack.
Big sail on the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if the doors come off. I don't know why these manufacturers think the doors should come off and then the doors blow away.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
That never happens. All right, I was just going to share one thing, and then we can get into why Ryan's here, besides just banter with us. So, Cat called me up. He was having a problem with suction maintaining, and he kept saying the compressor's not blowing by. Like I guess he did a pump down test, and no dice, Jim Rice. It was still just not maintaining suction. And he was like getting into like really overcomplicated stuff. I'm like, let's break it down simplistically. And he sent me this, and unfortunately, with Bitzers, they just give you the lock rotor ramps, which I don't really like. And unfortunately, this picture looks like a potato, so I'm sorry about that. But he basically gave me the temperature, and we were playing around with the app to see what it should have been. And the amperage that it spit out said it was like 6.89 amps. This guy sent me a picture then. Never mind the desktop. Sent me a picture of this. He's like, see, the compressor's pulling almost exactly what it should be. Yep, wrong way. 7.089. And I was like, wait a minute, the numbers that you put in weren't what it was operating at. It was, you were putting the numbers in that it was currently, you were putting in the numbers what it was supposed to be operating at. You're not putting it at the numbers that it currently is operating at. So we did that. Hold on, let me find the other potato picture.
This is so unorganized.
Oh, stop it. Stupid picture. But anyway, so regardless, unfortunately you can't read it. And I tried putting it through an AI increaser, and then it made things worse. But he was telling me that what he was seeing was supposed to be at like 12 amps, and he was only pulling that 7 amps. So in essence, it wasn't a correct amount of amps for what he was doing, and he was unsure that I was right. He went back today and changed out one of the valve plates, and I was going to share some of the pictures of what the valve plate looked like. So on this one right here, what do you see, Kev? Anything on this one?
She
Anything
is
weird?
gone.
What do you mean? Explain.
It's missing a reed valve.
Okay, and then on top over here, look at this. Look at that weird wear. Ryan and I were looking at these before, trying to figure out like what would that be from. And the only
Looks
thing,
like it's from the valve plate, like the actual valve itself coming loose.
and that's what I was thinking, either maybe because of the heat, where it was starting to warp that reed, and then it was just literally sitting there like this, and like beating on the top there, or I don't know what the min saturated condenser temperature is on Bitzers. On the compound Carlisles, you're only allowed to go like 70 degrees saturated. If you go any lower than that, then it gets worse.
I don't know. I think the Costco's down to 50, 45.
Okay. Maybe Bitzers don't have that problem. But you can see that there's a crap ton of wear on right about now. So did the valve get all warped because of all the heat? Because look, it looks like it's been smoked a little bit, yeah?
Yeah. My thing, pump down test, useless.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, that's what he said to me. And then when he looked at it from here's the other picture from the side. Look at that freaking thing.
Oh, yeah, it's toast.
So did heat, what do you think? Do we think that heat basically heated that up and then made it just start to bend? And
Yeah, I don't know. This is why I'm such a big proponent of not doing pump down tests.
yeah, because you can still have that other valve hold, right?
Yep.
So like I said,
trend of discharge superheat would be handy to have.
yeah, he doesn't have access to that, unfortunately. And that's one of the things with diagnosing, right? You can do a whole bunch of stuff if you have more information than really what you need, right? You were talking about diagnosing oil issues or whatever. The more information that you have. Kevin and I were talking the one day about checking out, putting an oil sensor line right on the outlet of the float. So you can see if it's feeding intermittently or just sending it straight out. So,
or not feeding oil at all.
I do it on every EMS conversion I add sensors on the oil separator.
Really?
Yeah, I agree. It's very valuable to have the actual oil temperature.
Yep.
Especially on outdoor racks for obvious reasons, and why that's important to have.
Yeah, it takes another half hour to an hour and saves somebody a lot of troubleshooting.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan, besides talking about maple syrup and igloos, what are we talking about today?
I think a little bit of review on a couple things, like the episode where Kevin was talking about he had to deal with some ADF files and whatnot. I think I might might just review something on that, some terminology maybe. And I think I also just want to models of E2s to throw out there, because that's been a question that I've been getting lately is like, well, what model do I get? And also I'd like to, afterwards, I can do a screen share to this E3 that I have behind me and kind of show how you can change the, I guess, the values on a screen on one of the applications. Because I saw there was a question online not that long ago. The guy was trying to put in defrost, and it just ended up being he was doing it, but the defrost termination sensor was not displayed on the screen. So from his perspective, he wasn't defrosting it because the discharge air temperature sensor was not increasing.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
so long story short, the guy was doing nothing wrong, and there's nothing wrong with the case. Yeah, I guess so. To start some models, I'm going to compare them to what everyone's used to with E2s. E2s, we've got good old RX, the RX family with 100s, which aren't that common, 300s and 400s. We got CXs, see them as C stores or a little bit of everything, I guess you can say. BX for building, being HVAC and lighting, 300 and 400s for both. So E3s, same kind of model terminology for RX, CX, and CX. However, instead of an example of E2 RX 300, the E3 would just be an E3 RX. The E2 RX 400 is an E3 RX E. Same goes with the CX. 400 model has an E at the end of it, so it's CXE. And the BX 400 of the E2 is an E3 BXE. Saying that, there's also F, that is a small format model, so there's not a whole lot of applications out of the box in the thing. There is an SR that is considered to be a service replacement model, which out of the box, that one has the most applications in it. And there's also the CO2 model that has the CO2 applications out of the box. Saying that, if you have, let's say, an E3 RXE and you're looking to use that for a CO2 application, you would have to get this the enhanced CO2 suction application. So in the E2 world, we dealt with description files. So if you'd want add whatever application it may be, being M400 at the time or whatever valve driver, you have to install the description file, and then you put your license key. And this is also assuming that your firmware for your E2 was relatively up to date. Same with the E3 firmware, make sure that's relatively up to date. Throw in the ADF file, so there's no description files anymore. We have ADF files for the E3 as well as the site supervisor. Once you have the ADF file loaded up, which I'll do a screen share to show where that goes, that's where you would enter your license key. If you try to put your license key before the ADF, it won't recognize the license key, so nothing will happen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a little matrix that you have there.
Yeah, so I had a question about this because I heard you rattling off other numbers. So all I see is CX 100, CX 300, and CX 400. And this is what you were saying about you have some HVAC, some refrigeration on the CX model. Now, where were you? You said there was an E at the end. Is that the enhanced E2?
It's just instead of the 400 model, it's just called, in the case of an E3 for a CX, the 400 model would be called a CXE, where the 300 model, equivalent to an E2, is just a CX.
Oh, okay.
So you don't really see the 300 or the 400 anymore. It's just the base and then the one with the E that has more stuff in it. And then, yeah, the SR being the service replacement is out of the box, will cover you with anything.
Gotcha.
So will the service replacement be a CO2 one? If it can you make it one without buying licenses or no?
Like, good question, but I don't. The last service replacement that I saw, it did not have them, but that was a year and a half ago. I'll get back to you on that, but I think that should be in it. If you want, I can do a quick screen share to show where ADF files will go. I know up here in Canada, if you would get an ADF file, you essentially would get it from myself. In the US, there's obviously different methods, different, just do a tech support, and probably the easiest bet to go through there. Do a screen share here. Okay, browser up, you see it?
Yeah, one sec. There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, it has
So
to.
this is just the E3 behind me. It's not a real rack, of course, but yeah, you're gonna see some values are just bouncing around. So in this case, I'm logged in. You can see at the top user, touching on the user again, or the credentials rather. The E2 we used user pass, probably more than everybody should have, because I'm a big fan of everybody having their own unique login credentials.
Mhm.
So when you first turn on an E3 for the first time, user pass is what you would use to do the initial setup. It will shortly then afterwards ask you change your password. So the password cannot be anything, first off, it can't be pass. And the password string cannot have the name of the user in it. But yeah, if you'd want to throw in an ADF, got the cog or the gear at the top left, hit the cog, drop down menu for systems, it's at the menu on the bottom,
Mhm.
file management and licensing. And then in this case, there's a menu, a button right in the middle. I'm connected remotely, but otherwise you'd have the same interface on the screen itself. You would have a USB key if you're doing it locally on the machine, not connected to it with a desktop. You would just choose your USB or choose wherever on your computer that you have the file loaded. Once you load it in, there's a couple buttons, click start thing, and afterwards you would license management, enter the key that would have been provided to you. Saying that, you can't buy like a small format model and expect to buy condenser application or 2 or 3 condenser applications. Just do your research, find out what applications you need ahead of time, get the proper model. Otherwise, licensing, this is just the one behind me. I got some of the applications I have on. Some of these are relatively standard. Some of them are a little more unique. Anywhere you see the license key that it was added,
Mhm.
it was something that was added after the fact. In this case, I have a license in this one for 2 IPROs for whatever reason I did that. And you can see I'm only using one of 2. Here's the version. This is the part number of the ADF, and that's what it's called. And you can just give it a quick scroll through to see what you have or whatnot.
Did I just see IntelliGen?
Today's episode is sponsored by the RefRuShield RDP Series differential pressure monitors from Westermeyer Industries, now available for transcritical CO2 systems in addition to other common pressures and refrigerants. When the filter element of your coalescing oil separator is contaminated, it can hurt your system's performance and efficiency. But how do you know when it's time to replace that filter? Wait too long to replace, and you could end up with a nasty filter blowout. But replacing too often can be a waste of time and money. The answer is installing a differential pressure monitor. The RDP Series differential pressure monitors, including the new transcritical CO2 model, are available now from Westermeyer Industries. To find out more information, email sales@westermeyerin.com. That's WESTERMEYERIN.com.
Yes, sir.
I was doing the same thing.
I was like, are you serious?
Yeah, I haven't really tested it before. I was at a wholesaler in Burnaby, British Columbia, and we were doing some training out there for the wholesaler guys, and I was asked, "Hey, can you guys connect to an IntelliGen?" I'm just like, I have no idea. So I just ended up looking up and found that we had an ADF file for an IntelliGen, and yeah, we connected to it. And in this case, it was reverse polarity. Was over Modbus, and yeah, got it online, and they were pretty thrilled about it.
So I do have another question. Can you show us, because like I've heard of people running into this frequently, where let's just say they have an enhanced suction on the E3, but there's a difference between the enhanced suction and enhanced suction CO2. So where would you see that in here to identify if you actually have the right one?
The name in this case, the license called CO2 suction group.
Okay.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, we can go over a couple things on it otherwise versus non-CO2. It's just standard enhanced suction is what we're used to.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those, from a description point of view, that's what the differences would be. So yeah, it's ADF files. Again, there's no description files with E3s. The ADF file replaced the description file, and you put in your ADF file first, and then you put your license key. If you do the license key first, it won't do anything. It'll say invalid. And
Learn
then
that the hard way.
And I get a text message saying, "Hey, why isn't it working?"
Yeah, I did that for about an hour trying to get all three of them to work, and I'm like, this is pissing me off because I used to always do it the other way in the E2. It was always license first, then description file.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's take a quick peek at CO2 suction group. We can do a deeper dive on some more, I guess, heavier parameters, even on the iPro if you want it. In this case, you'll see this trend is all over the place because I use this at various times. So I'm just going to click.
or is it just on? You just because you had it on and off.
Yeah, the long flat line that I have here, it was off. So it just takes the last point to whenever I turned it on here, and it just connects the dots from there. So in this case, I'm just going to focus on over the last few days.
Mhm.
I was trending this just in anticipation of this. So I just dragged over it. If you're doing it on the screen locally on the E3, you just hold it with your finger and slide it over. So again, some of these trends may be a little wacky because it's not a real machine. It's just I did some creative flexible combiner stuff to create a false value. So in this case, again, this is CO2 suction group, in this case, medium temp. I threw in a set point of plus 20 degrees. Tile points, this is the example that we kind of talked about 5 minutes ago, where the guy looking for support, with the defrost question, that value was not there. So all I did at the time, I just went under points view, which is right to the right of the main tile point square,
Mhm.
and you can choose the drop down of your application, and then you can either pick points that are not in there or pick something from another application as well. Pick any point you want that's in there.
So you could
If
use
you
that.
want,
You could use that
sorry.
then to. Yeah, I'm sorry. You could use that to basically graph something with the suction to see if a case coming out of defrost or something like that is affecting with your suction.
Yeah, exactly. And then another thing as well, when you're at the home page, the main tile screen, I'll go back to, you can see the first few values. In this case, I have the learning is the status, pressure, set point, et cetera, et cetera. So going under this application, those first few in that tile
Mhm.
are the first few that are in here. So if for whatever reason, if I really wanted to see what the active variable capacity is, you can hit the wrench, and then you have the three horizontal lines, or I've heard some people refer to it as a
Hamburger.
yeah, just give it a click and drag it up. So I've hit OK, give that a save. And let's say if I go back to my main page, my variable capacity is at the top. So it depends, and this is unique to my user profile. So let's say, Kevin, if you don't really care to look at active variable capacity, you'd rather see stage out at a quick glance, that's what you would do. You would go under there and just drag and drop as you please.
But hold on, you have to have a good password in order to do that, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's view only or a level 1 password. Yeah, you won't be able to get very far with that. I'm just
Okay.
gonna drag that back down. Save that. Just do a quick little skim through on this. So again, this is CO2 suction group. There's going to be a lot of familiarities with these enhanced that everybody's been used to for so many years. In this case, rack is coordinated. If you don't know what the heck that means, question mark, and these things are pretty damn good. And you also have at the top right, I stress the importance of this. You can just throw in keywords, and the help guide in this thing is pretty good.
Hmm.
It can usually find definitions or descriptions for what you're looking for pretty quickly. Let's go to inputs. We're taking some consideration for flash tank pressure. So in this case, my flash tank pressure, it's going to be static because I just have it on a potentiometer on here.
Mhm.
So whenever you're looking to add an input, green arrow, seems like a lot of people miss that. Hit the green arrow for a drop down. Everywhere you see a green arrow,
Mhm.
there will be a drop down or a sub menu below it. Click edit and choose which application, which point that you want to use. Being if you use it from an application or a pointer to another application, or you're getting it off of another board and another point. In this case, I'm taking it off of P2 off the IPRO, P2 being gas cooler outlet pressure.
That definitely took some time getting used to, but God, is it so much easier to backwards troubleshoot something?
Oh yeah.
Like where something is feeding something else and you could just click on it and it takes you right to it. I was
Yeah,
over
you
there,
can, exactly.
I was over there messing with that E2 today, and I'm like, I'm like going backwards. I'm like, this is so frustrating now because I just want to click and go backwards, and now I got to go back in, out, in, out, in, out.
Absolutely, yeah. Like what you were just touching on. Like I'm looking at an output right now. I don't know. Let's just say filtered pressure out. I'm putting it to another application, and then the pointer to the right of the screen, it's a hyperlink, so you can give it a click, and it's going to take you to that application, and then you can just keep going that way. So it's, for the most part, the idea is with 3 clicks or 3 taps, if you're on the screen locally, you can pretty much get to where you need to go. What else do we got?
So
I will
one
say this too: the mouse and keyboard on this thing is pretty sweet.
Yeah, you can get pretty quick on it. Doing it locally on the display, it takes a little bit of getting used to because a lot of people are used to the old rubber keyboard, but there's a learning curve back in the day with going from Blackberries to iPhones too, right? Same idea. It just takes some getting accustomed to.
So I got the wired keyboard to work on it.
The wired keyboard from what?
I took a wired keyboard and plugged it into one of the USBs.
Oh yeah, yeah, you can do that. Yeah,
Same thing with the mouse.
yep, yeah, you can do it with a mouse. It works. Yeah, exactly. Where I've had it connected on an iPad and have a little, I don't know, the docked iPad that has a touchpad. Oh, the touchpad was working on it too on the keyboard of the iPad. Yeah, it worked pretty well because you can get a pretty good resolution on the iPad and all that stuff. But yeah, other stuff as well. What do we got? I'm looking at the output screen. So it looks after liquid injection, hot gas injection. Obviously, we're looking to look after superheat, low temp superheat for ZO scrolls. 36 degrees. I gotta get it. I have to throw that out there because it's just seeing superheat at 5 degrees, 10 degrees. It just blows my mind.
What with CO2? That's perfectly fine,
Well,
right?
30 for
Mm,
that's for low temp.
low
36.
temp.
36, that's
Yeah,
high.
the green guys are like that as well.
Yeah, because the oil, because you're running at such a low saturated, your oil is really cold. So if and your pressure difference between your suction and your discharge isn't that high, right? So if you're running 200-pound suction and 420-pound discharge because you're feeding into your suction on the transcritical rate, you don't have that much of a differential. It's not creating a lot of heat. So if you don't have a high enough superheat coming back, essentially that oil is going to be sludge. And then because a lot of these compressors are the sling, not sling, people hate when I say sling, the barrel lubrication, whatever you want to call it, where it scoops it up, that oil is going to be really thick and not make it to the front of the bearing.
Is that the same with
Yeah.
the recips too?
Medium temps, we have
Mhm.
20 to 50 degrees.
What about low temp? Same thing, 36.
Ooh, give me a couple minutes, I'll let you know. Because yeah, we have the 4M SLSs. I want to say there's a bunch of different capacities coming out with those, which is awesome.
I am sold on the Copeland recips. They are so much quieter and they vibrate so much less.
Yeah, I'm a fan. They're pretty robust.
He's picking up his shirt. He's like, yeah, I'm a fan.
I'm a fan. Hopefully the marketing girl sees this.
I've had quite a few people that saw them running for the first time, and usually it's just, is this thing on? And
Yeah.
then they touch it. It's like, yeah, it is.
You literally cannot even hear my Walgreens run, like through the glass.
Yeah, you hear the
Like,
frequency drive whine more than the compressor.
you do.
In that case.
You literally
Yeah.
hear the frequency drive more than you hear the compressor.
Yep, exactly. I'll play around with PSS. I'm sure I'll give you a superheat value for the 4M
No,
SLS. So the SLS is the low temp, and the 4M TLS is the medium temp transcritical compressors.
I'm sold on just having recips on the low temp. I don't like the scrolls on the low temp. It just, I don't know. The recips just seem way more robust.
Semis are semis.
Yeah. They're rebuildable. They're not just throw them in the garbage. If you could throw a set of valve plates on them, I am a big fan of running the semis on the low temp. I think they run a lot smoother and a lot better.
Yeah, it's required. But yeah, it's Zetos are pretty tough superheat permitting. I stress the superheats, and they also like oil. You have to give them oil,
Not discharge vapor.
not discharge vapor. Yeah, the oil feed line needs oil, not discharge vapor.
Do they lower the Zetos VFD ratings, or can you still only take them to like 45 hertz?
Which was what are you talking about, Zetos? I'm confused. I've never heard that term. Is that a Canadian thing?
Zeos?
Zeos?
Is that the transcritical recip?
No.
Zeto is just our subcritical scrolls.
Oh. 30.
Yeah, I want to say 30.
They can go to 30 hertz?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that. It's
Really? When did that start? Because I thought scrolls could only go to 45 or 50 hertz because they rely on the speed to sling it.
That's what
I want to say 30 hertz.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I would much rather have a VFD driven compressor than a digital any day.
And the
There's different applications for both, right? Like
correct.
Because there's different benefits to digital. I'm a VFD guy. I like VFDs, but VFDs are scary for a lot of people.
I will say this: if you have EPRs, digital's all day long. If you have no EPRs, then variable speed.
Yeah, exactly. It's being also if you have the service talent for frequency drives, there's definitely a fit for drives. I find if you're more in a remote area, digitals are quite a bit easier to troubleshoot.
Yeah,
that's usually my big divide on choosing one or the other. But it's frequency drives are just fun. They are. You like them too.
Till they blow up.
Stop it. But yeah, the
line and load.
The transcritical compressors, the recips can go up to 70 hertz, right?
Yes, the first two frames. So the larger frames where they have the mechanical oil pumps, which we have. What are those guys? 4MTLS. It's like a 22, 25. Give me 1 second, I'll tell you. 4MTLS 2022, 28. Those guys have mechanical oil pumps. Those guys still cap at 60 hertz, where the models with the flanger oil
the splash lubrication.
Exactly. Those ones can do 70 hertz. Just something to take into consideration for the 70 hertz is to make sure the manufacturer of the rack has all the electrical equipment rated for that extra bit of amperage. It shouldn't be much, but just throwing it out there. You can't just assume you can crank it up to 70 hertz. I don't know if a manufacturer might be really tight on wiring size or even starters or brake or contactors, whatever it is, but make sure your electrical is sized accordingly.
So this became an issue on the Walgreens rack, but not because of the electrical sizing. We hit like a weird spot in the suction group once we got loaded up where the compressor capacities were only set up for it as it was at 60 hertz and the extra capacity wasn't added in. So when the E3 was doing its math, it like flipped out in between stages. So it was trying to run like a fixed speed compressor and then a second fixed speed compressor, and then trying to control the digital, and it just had a meltdown because it was going to 70 hertz and overspeeding, and it just couldn't find its capacity. And as soon as Travis from Copeland messed with the capacities a little bit and put the VFDs to what their percentage would be at 70, the whole rack just shifted immediately.
Yeah, I've had a situation like that as well, where I came across the compressor capacities in the suction group. They weren't configured properly. Even the fixed stages, whatever the capacities were, I don't know where the contractor came up with these values, but they weren't the proper values. And then the variable speed compressor, they set the load limit. I think it was, they set the load limit on the drive, and then they set the load limit on the suction group. So whenever the suction group was outputting the minimum control signal to the drive, it didn't bottom out on the drive. It was like a third of the way down because they were doing minimums of both, and it just ended up being a bit of a mess. But yeah, it's 70 hertz. Set that up on the drive, obviously, and then use your capacities. Hopefully, you have a refrigeration schedule that has all the data available for you, and set that up accordingly in the stage setup. In this case, again, this isn't a real rack, but I just picked a number of 17.85. I think that's a 4 MTLS 11 variable speed for the first VS variable speed compressors. Stage 2 is just an on-off fixed capacity. A couple tabs over variable capacities where you would set up how quick you ramp up or decrease, how quick you decrease, minimum, all that stuff. I don't find there's a magic number for the increase rate or the decrease rate. I find it's application specific.
Definitely not 5,000 though.
Yeah, I don't think I would pick 5,000. That's
It
pretty
seems
high.
to be like all these random companies go to 5,000. What?
So what we were messing around the rack when we were doing the startup, and you could see that when we were starting up, essentially what we did was we slowed how fast the ramp up speed was, and then quickened up the decrease speed. Basically, it wouldn't make that compressor load and unload back off and on, and then changed it once we got everything rolling back up when we actually had a full load on it.
That's a good point to bring up, because you're talking about the ramp up, ramp down of the drive. So let's say if someone's setting up the variable speed increase rate and decrease rate, that's just the control signal going to the drive.
Mhm.
If you have it really aggressive on the E2 or the E3 or any other control system for that matter, the ramp up of the drive setting that trumps everything. So it's just something to consider. It's if you want it to ramp up real fast, you have to configure the drive accordingly.
You'll see it overshoot in the graph. You see it overshooting where it's going below the set point, and then all of a sudden it never can find its way, right home where it needs to be.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. What else do we? Yeah, touching on. Yeah, we got liquid injection, hot gas injection. Currently, that is just you enter a superheat value set point, and then it's currently a digital out or a relay out to a pointer or whatever it may be. It's an on-off output currently, coming soon for other features, which we'll revisit at another time. Oil injection is
So we have him on again. He's like, "There's more stuff coming out. You got to have me on again to talk about it."
yeah, I'll just dangle a carrot as a teaser for you.
Suck.
You want to go over the oil setup next?
Oils, that could be a heavy one.
Okay.
Because it depends on the rack manufacturer. At a glance, you can have the pulse on and pulse on cycle off built into it. And then you also have our inputs for you can take on inputs for oil inputs, low tank, high tank, same with the flat or oil reservoir and the flash tank as well. You can have inputs into there as well. Yeah, and in this example, you can set up what kind of alarm do you want it to be, disabled, critical, non-critical, or notice, whatever it may be. Obviously, oil and flash tank levels should be critical. No oil is typically bad situation. A lot of these other things you'll notice are familiar. Kevin, I heard you mentioning tight control in your application has worked better than tightest.
Correct.
I'll agree, but mainly in like my experience that I've had, it's just because the size of the compressors, just so they fit that cycling more than tightest. Like if we have 3 compressors that are, I don't know, 20 horsepower, 10 and a 10, having less cycling would probably be better. But if you had 5 compressors that are, I don't know, 10, 10, 10, 5, 5, 5, tightest would probably work a lot better. So it's application specific on the racks.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these sizing issues would be solved if we just added more drives. Everything should get multiple drives.
Customers don't want to pay for it.
One more drive on a smaller compressor is, oh my God. I was apprehensive at first on how the suction group was going to control it, but it does phenomenal.
I agree. If correct me if I'm wrong, in your application, you had a drive on the smallest compressor and a drive on the largest.
Yes. The medium
That's a
temps
slam
basically.
dunk right there.
Oh yeah, it's like a summer winter deal. So when it in the wintertime when there's less load and everything else, it's running the smaller one and able to control it better. And then that's the second compressor it's starting, so it's running 2 compressors on a drive. So one at 50 hertz and one at 30 hertz and one at 70 hertz.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you can get pretty creative on how you want to configure that, but yeah, if you want to do a summer winter, have the smaller compressor with the drive, have that be the lead
It was doing
in
it
the
on
lower
its own.
ambience. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that would work out quite well. You should be able to really maintain your suction pressures and limit compressor cycling. That would be nice to see more drives out there, but yeah, I don't think a lot of folks see the benefit in the premium for a couple drives and the electrical equipment required. Maybe one day. Drives are getting more affordable as we go year after year, right?
Yep.
Oh, what else do we got? In this case, I got a CC200. CC200, in this case, I have a backnet IP, again, IP being over Ethernet. In the E3 on the door, there are 3 Ethernet ports. From left to right in the OpenNet is Ethernet 0, 1, 2. I have the backnet IP configured to Ethernet 1. Ethernet 2 is typically reserved for the PIB board, and Ethernet 0 is how I did my local connect from the desktop that I'm on to the PC, to the E3. Just so for a case 100 benefits being the obvious ones is multi-evaporators. Instead of having a ton of main case controllers, you have one main and then the expansion modules. On the main, you can have either the control a stepper or a pulse width. Stepper wired at the bottom, pulse width at the top left. It's the same model number, same part number. Out of the box, pick what valve you want. If you have 2 valves, you need an expansion. 3 valves, get another expansion. If you have the luxury where your end user customer decided to go with EEVs as well as electronic EPRs, the electronic EPR is going to be on the expansion module on the furthest right. It is always going to be on the furthest right. In the case of electronic EPR, that will be controlling temperature. And if on the EEV, if it's pulse width or stepper, it's just superheat. It's not taking superheat and temperature, then correcting to whatever one needs the most correction. Some of the values we have on it, the configuration's not too bad. I don't find, mind you, I've been playing around with them a bit. So the easiest way I find is you on the display. If you can see it, if I don't slide this thing off my desk without looking, not really. There's a little Bluetooth display where the temperature is read out. By default, the Bluetooth is off. If you want to turn on the Bluetooth, hold your button on the or hold your finger at the top right. You're going to see set flashing on the bottom left, and it's going to give some beeps at you. It sounds like an old Nintendo game whenever it starts beeping. Whenever the set is solid on, you can swipe to the right. You're going to see a Bluetooth icon. Hold the Bluetooth icon, same idea. You're going to hear it beep, and then Bluetooth is going to be on. App being to connect to it is CC Connect. You have to register an account. If the account gets okayed, the default access levels are view only. It varies for end user to end user, obviously, because they want different permissions and all that stuff. If you have read-write access, you can pretty much configure a good portion of it right on the phone. The way that you would configure the IP address for BACnet IP is you select which rack it is, which system it is, which case it is.
Do you have the chart? Do you have the chart for that? Because I've been looking through all the stuff that I have, and I can't find it. Like I have a lot of stuff.
I started to figure it out the one day. I sat there and just literally started adding everything up.
So while you're looking that up, I'm just going to share something real quick. Present share screen. Damn it. So I know you were rattling through some of that stuff, so I just want to make sure we're square. This is what Ryan was talking about as far as your connections on your CC200. You see where the stepper is connected over to here, and then your pulse width over to here. Evaporator fans, defrost heater, case lighting, and liquid line solenoid if you have one. And then the display, if anyone's never seen it before, this is essentially what it looks like. And that's the Bluetooth light you were talking about, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever it beeps at you, it's a pretty noticeable beep. I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like Excite Bike if anybody remembers that old game. And then if you don't use it, I don't know the time frame off the top of my head, but it will time out and disable the Bluetooth, so you don't have to worry about, I don't know, somebody randomly connecting to it or seeing it on their phone and try to do something with it. It just automatically shuts it off. So if it sits idle and Bluetooth shuts off, you have to go back to it, manually turn it on again.
Gotcha.
Configuring it, yeah, essentially it's can get pretty heavy. It's asking if you have a solenoid. It's asking you, is it coming from a rack? And on this screen you can see, is it come for something a variable capacity? Is it more of a fixed capacity? Mainly just looking, hey, suction pressure, is it gonna be moving a lot, or is it gonna be relatively flat? Number of coils would get into how many expansions you would have. So again, let's say if you have the one manufacturer is putting out 12 foot, let's say 5-deck cases, they typically have 4-foot modular coils inside. So you would have one main CC200 and then 2 expansions. So from a device address point of view or quantity point of view, it's 1 instead of 3, which I find is greatly beneficial in these CO2 stores, because we have case controllers everywhere. And let's say in the example of XM case controllers, it increases the quantity of them pretty high when you start getting a lot of coils. You can also dual temp, typical case controller stuff that you guys are accustomed to, control the lights, control dual temp stuff. They also have it where the evaporator fans can be variable speed. You'd thinking that in display fixture point of view is not that handy, but we've been up here in Canada, we've been getting a lot of cold storages looking into these.
Yeah.
So there's some strategies on having the full speed on full call for refrigeration, and then as you start to undershoot the set point, potentially decrease the fan speed. There's a time and a place for the application, but it has that ability as well.
You could literally take and ultimately control the TD of coils and get the most efficient coil as you could. Like on a big coil, it would pan out. On a case with 6,000 BTUs, it seems like a giant waste of money, but on a massive coil with a 30-ton valve, huge savings.
Oh, you can really fine tune it. Yeah, it's medium, high profile evaporators. You can definitely fine tune it. I don't know, a feature that I like as well. Let's say medium profile coil. Let's say you have 3 fans. The analog input current sensors. Let's assume each fan is drawing. I don't know. In my land we use 575 volts, so it's ballpark. We're 1 amp per horsepower. So let's say each fan's drawing 3 amps. We have 3 fans, so we know if all fans are running, we see 9 amps. So if we trend that, it's all good. And suddenly, if the trend drops from 9 to 6 amps, you have a motor that's not running. If you go down from 6 to 3 amps, well, you're down to 1 out of 3 motors. Same can be said for electric heaters. If you have some of the larger evaporators, electric heaters, they'll have multi heaters going through it. If you know what the amp draw is for each of them, or you have a baseline of this is what my current is when all heaters are on, you have that baseline where you can then set alarming on if my amp draw drops from here to this threshold to that threshold, you lost a heater, create an alarm. You can look at it before the thing turns into a block of ice. It's always fun.
Sorry, so I have a question. So like when I did industrial, they had a lot of VFDs on some of the bigger evaporators, big cold storage. Are they starting to do like a MPEPS type evaporator fan motor now? Or are they still using a drive and just giving the drive a signal?
I've seen both ways, where there'll be drives, variable speed drive, obviously on the motors, or they will be like 2 horsepower ECM motors. In this case, be like 230 single phase, but the 0 to 10 volts from the fan or the CC200 will just go directly into the motor. I've seen that as well.
Yeah, all the larger Gutner coils, Brett, are all 0 to 10 now.
Well, signal.
Yep. So you either got to jump it out at the coil to give you full speed, or you got to have a controller to control it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just screen setting up the inputs, auxiliary inputs. You can, depends on what you're doing, but you can potentially use, I don't know, let's say you have a humidity sensor in a prep room. You could potentially cheat a little bit and have the humidity sensor input go to the auxiliary input, and then you can have the application pull from the CC200. So there's different things you can do there. Same with the outputs. There's an auxiliary relay output that you can use. So there's room for some creativity in what you want to do there. But yeah, also aside from BACnet IP, there's also BACnet MSTP. MSTP being Master Slave Token Pass. That's a whole episode on talking about BACnet and troubleshooting and all that stuff. Otherwise, we can also get them under Modbus. Myself, I'll choose BACnet IP any day. It's a lot easier, my opinion, it's a lot easier to troubleshoot a network when it's IP based. You just have a Cat5 checker and put in one into the other. Yeah, you're good.
So let's talk about that for a second. So the checker is great, but so in correlation with using like pinging the controller, is that going to give you a little bit more to see if there's any failures on the line than versus just checking it with the Ethernet checker?
Yeah, so let's say if you'd have a network problem, the first step would be check the cable, Ethernet checker. I've been Klein little checker from Home Depot or whatever the heck it is. And if it's still offline, the next step that I would do would be pinging it. Being if you're using a PC or whatever other device, I was told that pinging from the E3 is a feature that will be coming out down the road. When that is, I'm not entirely sure, but it'll be a very, very well received feature is my 2 cents. Be nice to just give it a, let's say I'm on the control inventory screen right now and you can see my CC200's online, but it'd be nice down the road to have some kind of ping. Yep, your health check, everything's online, it's all good.
Yeah, we'll say that. Like when they showed me how to do the ping test, like it literally isolated down to here's these 4 cases, and in between here, like here's where the problem is.
Yep, exactly. It's nice because then you also don't have to worry as much. But I've been dealing with a lot of other case controllers and Modbus networks lately, and it's just troubleshooting the cable. People are contractors using the wrong cable, it's using LVT cable, and nothing's grounded, nothing's shielded, nothing's twisted, and causes a lot of headaches. Where it's Ethernet, it's just so much easier. That's what I think. Yeah, otherwise don't know if I don't get too much in the weeds, but otherwise the IPRO at a glance on this. Again, this is just a simulated thing. Temp 1, pressure 2, temperature 2.
Yeah,
we can probably do an entire
talk
episode
about
on
that.
it.
Let's talk about that temperature 2 sensor, because I keep getting conflicted information, and then I talk to someone, and then I talk to you, and then I talk to someone else, and they're like, yeah, like you can, as long as it's configured, you can use that T2 sensor as the outlet of like a heat reclaim to now be the new gas cooler outlet temperature sensor. Yes or no?
Yes. Yes, I've had applications where I've done that and it's works quite well. I've had contractors say to me it has not worked for them. Mind you, I don't know, I haven't seen any kind of set point files from them, so I don't know where or what they messed up on.
So you talk about using the T2 sensor?
Yeah.
So it's a DI2, and then that turns the T2 sensor on.
Yes, exactly.
We're using it at Walgreens. It works phenomenal.
Exactly. Because also at Walgreens, you have the latest firmware of everything going on there as well.
Correct. Yeah, like it's been flawless. Like you flip the DI, it switches to T2.
Exactly. Do you probably have it set up as reclaim?
We do not have it set up as reclaim.
What do you have it set up as in the case at DI2?
So we have it set up for gas cooler bypass because we're not actually using it for heat reclaim. We're using it for gas. Technically, it's on the other side of the gas cooler. It's on the other side of the geo. So we're not using it for anything besides that. So if it does bypass the gas cooler, we're using it for that. But now we're actually using it for control too, because we switched the way the pumps work. And if you switch it, which it's switched right now, it's running T2 permanently.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't know what I have off. I don't remember if I even have it configured, but whatever, give it a whirl.
So if you look at the chat, so someone had asked me a question about the iPro today, and they were on one store where they were able to override the iPro through the Visiograph. And then they were at another store where they couldn't override it through the Visiograph.
I've never been able to get it to work out the Visiograph.
I've never bothered to do it through Visiograph, to be honest. Are they, in this case, there's the override command where you can, do you want an override? Yes. How long? What do you want the position to? So in this case, what are valve ones currently, according to whatever my potentiometers are, is outputting 89%. Let's give it a whirl. Do I want an override? Yes, I do. How long? 3 minutes. Let's put it at 45%. Sure. Go to save. Give it a sec. I don't remember if I can just do save or if I can have to do right.
So I know we're working on the E3 here, but you said it was through the E2 where he couldn't get it to override.
I've honestly never, even on the E3 stores, I've never been able to get it to override.
Yeah, there it is. There's my override there. So I did right.
Right configuration. Okay.
Yeah, so you see there's my override value there.
So I can get it to override that way, but not with the Visiograph.
Yeah, Visio. I've always done it this way. I usually don't use the Visio on the only time I ever had to is because I've had to change the Modbus address on the iPro. That's my only time I've ever really used the Visio. We had an E3 that was doing 2 CO2 recs. But yeah, let's try it again. Let's do bypass override. Sure. Override value. 2 minutes. I'm going to try just save instead of write. Maybe I wasn't patient enough. So we'll see if this guy changes. Oh, there you go. So I did not do command write to. All I did was save. The first time I just wasn't patient enough. So you can see there's our override for valve 1's at 45 and our override value for valve 2's at 33. So yeah, it works.
So you know how you have the drop down where it says override, non-override? Is that those menus in the E2 as well for that? Like maybe he wasn't, the technician wasn't.
Yes, this is still there. Do I have? I don't have an E2 that I can connect to on this desktop, but yeah, the E2 will have a tab for this with the values are going to be called the same thing.
Except in that one, Brett, you got to change it to 101 for like automatic mode, and then change it from.
Oh, gotcha.
And then with the E2, you have to go out and you have to send E2 config to device to take it in or out of override every time.
Gotcha.
That I'm not sure. It's you probably know a fair amount about it. E2s, I've been in the E3 world for the last year and a bit. I'm getting rusty with E2s, unfortunately. But yeah, you can override it. One thing I like to, first thing that I do, if you are using, obviously you got the iPro going to the XEV20 valve driver. So if you are, that is communicating over CAN bus from the iPro to the XEV. The first thing that I do is enable the analog outputs, and I set up analog output 1 as valve 1 and analog output 2 as valve 2, even if it's not connected to anything, because it's a little harder, obviously, to troubleshoot. Hey, what are my valves doing? But it's just going over CAN bus. It's obviously hard to troubleshoot. But if you have the AOs enabled, what you got to do is get your multimeter out, put the DC, and then you can actually, if your valve's outputting 30%, you should see 3 volts, right? So I highly recommend everybody to do that. If they're using an XEV20, just enable the analog outputs for troubleshooting. because a lot of the times, oh, the iPro's bad. The iPro's bad. No, it's not. It's not bad. It's off on phase monitor or something, and the enable's off. I haven't gone through that recently, I swear.
Once or twice.
Mhm.
Someone was just talking to me. He's like, "Yeah, I was trying to override, preparing for a startup to make sure I had everything working right." And I was like, "Did the rack have power?" He's the 3-phase wasn't on. I'm like, "That'll do it," because then the iPro wasn't enabled, and you can't do jack all.
Yeah, so for the enable input, you can have it so enabled is closed or enable is open. So you just have to make sure you have the right polarity for the input. Yeah, otherwise, I don't know. Just here's a quick floor plan that was made for a demo. It's an idea. This is just a static image, but it was hooked up to something.
Mhm.
Clicking on the share screen instead of my actual screen. This is just something I winged up. Obviously, these values don't make a whole lot of sense, but this is just the CC200 behind me. I don't remember what the light switch is. Yeah, there's a tad bit of delay. Oh, there you go. The light just turned off. Hey.
Yeah, it's just something that I whipped up.
So
Like, he makes me feel so stupid when I see shit like this. He's like, "Yeah, I just did this in about 15 minutes. It looks awesome."
I have a $4,000 CAD program.
It works good.
I bet it does.
I'm playing with freaking PowerPoint, trying to get my shit to animate.
I'm over here with Microsoft Paint trying to make backdrops, and you're over here with a $4,000 CAD program. Let me ask you this, Ryan. So, like the backdrops, can anybody make these, or does it have to be made by Copeland?
Currently the latter. Yeah, we make these screens. I know up here in Canada, the easiest way that I have it is if it's a contractor or an end user, I ask for give me the need list and give me a wish list. Because it's easy for somebody to say, I want this floor plan and every single case you get the fancy stuff, and I want trends in every screen. More points on the screen costs more time, costs more money. So that's why I always ask for a need and a wish. Being if it's something down the road that's more opened up, I wouldn't doubt it. I haven't heard too much about it from a roadmap point of view, but yeah, currently this is something that's on our end. Well, in Canada, we do this in house.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting as a contractor to lay out they throw the rack diagram on there. Okay, I want to throw screen with the rack diagram like microthermal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've had to do that for quite a few sites. I've have one end user for their custom screens here that they wanted pictures of the actual rack. Like there was a certain sequence of valves that they had on it, so they took pictures, and then they wanted the cheat sheet with arrows pointing like this. If this goes here, do this. That goes the whole sequence of operation, and they just took the actual pictures of the actual real equipment that was there. It just comes down to creativity and whatever you want to do. You can get down and dirty with just basic floor plan and green light, red light, blue lights if you really want to.
And get some Microsoft Paint in there and make it real pretty.
Hey,
Windows 98, 16-bit.
I've seen Brett work miracles with PowerPoint and Microsoft Paint.
Oh yeah, you can get creative with it, but yeah, I don't know. In a nutshell, that's the quick review of stuff. Yeah, like down the road we can do a deeper dive on getting commission case control CC200 from out of the box. Same with the iPro, we can do some stuff on that.
Yeah, I think the next one I want to do commissioning the CC200 dead out of the box, because we ran into that and that was a learning curve. But thank God Chris Denny answers the phone for me still.
That man has a magnificent beard. Magnificent.
Yes.
See, I met him when he had no beard.
Same here.
And he was like 20. And yeah,
I was the first time I think he was in the field. It was on that store where I was bending distributors to even out superheat.
Oh, nice.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I think I had him on one of his very first field times too.
That's awesome.
It's come a long way. But Ryan, we appreciate you coming on, and we hope it's going to continue so we can go over some more CC200 stuff. But thank you for your time.
No problem. Glad to be on the show.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too.